feel like Kobe in the fourth quarter.
This is the DaneMoore NBA podcast. We are brought to you by Prize Picks, coming at you Tuesday morning. It's December 9th after the Wolves 108-105 loss to the Phoenix Suns on Monday night. I got Kyle Theige here with me, and I thought for today's show, I will put together 4 questions from the Wolves' loss to the Suns that we are going to dig into. I think it was a game that deserved some questioning, but hi, Kyle. How are you?
How'd you cut it down to 4? That's what I want to know. I had a lot more. I also thought I'm a little disappointed. The loss probably is why I don't get my own little college football foreplay before the pod starts, but we'll talk about it after. So, yeah, wherever you want to start, I said, and I believe this the morning after, that wasn't the worst loss to the Suns of the season. Because the Cup game really hurt my feelings. I was really hoping to spend this week in Vegas, but it was far more concerning, in my opinion, than blowing that 9-point lead in 45 seconds because of all of the things it showed yet again, roster, players, coaching staff, building, whatever. So whatever question you want to start with, but yeah, there were some major red flags from last night's loss.
Yeah, I didn't know like what term to put on this. You know, I sent this to you. I wrote, is what the Wolves are getting from Ant this season enough to drag them to 50 wins? And the like subtext of that is something else, Ant included, is not going down. Do we call it energy? Do we call it effort? Do we call it focus? Like, what is the catch-all term, you know, even for that this team is clearly, you know, deficient in, or, you know, spun most positively, like, is this team waiting around to turn all that stuff on for the playoffs? But what do you call it? You know, we're all experiencing this. We're all seeing it. We're seeing it last night. And you're like, all right, first quarter's over. They're down. Didn't really get it going there. Second quarter, yep. All right, here it is in the third quarter. A little bit of a spark, but they're down by 11. You know, it's that same pattern every time of the spark not being set. And I don't even know what the right term is. Does that make sense of like what to call it?
Yeah, I mean, just to go back to the question, because you actually worded it really, really well. The first question you sent me was, is what the Wolves are getting from Ant enough to drag them to 50 wins? The key word there is drag. And yes, right, I'm sorry, like, I think we talked about the harsh but fair criticism of Ant, and there's nights like against the Clippers where, I just want to say this right now, like, I didn't think Ant deserved to close that Clippers game. I thought there was just better options. We can talk about closing lineups and rotations and Chris Finch. There will be no negative comments by me about Anthony Edwards today because I thought he was awesome last night, giving him 40, questionable with an illness, 15 of 21 shooting. Yeah, like that type of just offensive raw box score production efficiency can drag them to 50 wins. But then you're the Bucks, right? You're the Giannis Bucks where you need that person to do so many things. Well, I mean, last night, yes, it was a poor shooting night for everyone else around him. But I don't think the shooting variance is why they lost the game. I think it's because of who they've run out there. And it's another one of those times where it's like, do they have more than 6.5 good players? I think Jalen Clark has kind of added himself to maybe 7, but some of the other guys they're throwing out there, I know we're going to talk about it, are just bringing this down so much. Yeah, we are now entering the bone zone. But again, you were there last night. I was not, but I just thought he was really questionable coming into the game, even when the injury report was updated. It's like, okay, Terrence with like whatever he had going on, he was out, he was in, but Ant was still questionable in his game time decision. He plays, and then he gives him 40. And I didn't think, other than maybe demanding the basketball in the last minute, like just saying like, I don't fucking care, get me the basketball, that would have been nice. But I don't know how last night can be anything other than his teammates, the coaching staff, and the roster that's been put around him all of a sudden being a major red flag.
So what I thought was interesting about this game is it felt to me like the most give me the damn ball game. And that, yeah, like if your answer to the question, or to maybe other people are listening, if their answer to the question is no, I do not think as good as Ant has been from, you know, this raw box score production standpoint is enough to drag this team to 50 wins. One, I wouldn't push back on that a ton. They're 15-9 right now, kind of soft schedule. That's on pace for 51 wins. I don't think they're like clearly going in that direction. So I would say if your answer to that question is no, and you see them more to be like a high 40s type of team, then it would be like, what more can Ant do offensively? What areas of the floor can he score more himself? And, entering last night, the answer to that would have been, well, what if he became more of a shooter from the middle of the floor, from the mid-range area, rather than trying to be a distributor in that space? He hasn't, despite all the mid-range talk, in training camp and MJ and all that stuff, like, Ant hasn't been shooting a lot of mid-range shots this year, and he's still been doing it not at a high clip, about 40% from mid-range, not good. But last night we saw him take 9. He took 9 mid-range of the 21 shots that he took. 9 were from the mid-range. He made 7 of them, and I did take that to be turning it up a little bit more on my back. We do not have bankable scoring coming off of the bench. Randall isn't quite where he was at the beginning of the season from a predictable offensive scoring output. Jaden McDaniels was not having a good offensive game despite having a very good offensive season thus far this year. And Ant just did okay, bump it up. I am going to do more of those things. So I think that is what's going to be interesting to track here more, because what's also simultaneously happening is Ant is getting doubled a lot more, and he is playmaking. What I'm saying I'm curious to see is, does this usage keep going up and up and up? And is it more and more and more Ant to compensate for what this team doesn't have kind of globally within the group? I'll let you respond to that, but I want to play, if we can, I want to play the Ant clip on the mid-range stuff I asked him about last night after the game. As much mid-range shots, I would assume, in a game this season. What are you looking for in the nights where you're like, okay, this is a space for me to go?
To be honest with you, man, I want to take them a lot more. But, sometimes I second guess the mid-range. But, yeah, I mean, I feel like I'm pretty good at them. Others may not think so. So I try to, shoot a little more threes in mid-range. But I feel like it's always there. Just bump a guy and then pull up. So
is that what you're saying? You're second. It's you that's second guessing.
That's
why
me.
there aren't more.
Yeah, it's me second guessing them. That's why I don't shoot them as much. But yeah, I feel like if I take them with confidence, I can make them at a high rate.
Is that what we're seeing? You think on when you get someone on your hip and you get to the elbow and it looks like you're gonna rise,
and then I might pass it or something. Yeah, that's where I be in the middle of trying to make the right play and just shoot the damn ball. I should just shoot it every time. I should just shoot it. And I'm starting to see that now, especially if they're in the drop coverage, keep a guy on my hip and then just bump him, kind of like what Luka does all the time. So just watch it fit. Like I said, I always watch Luka film. So just watching him and see how he get his shots off, because they send all type of coverages at him also. So
let you respond to that. What'd you think?
I mean, I said I was going to be, this is a pro Ant episode of the podcast. Luka does pass that bitch a lot, right? So he doesn't just shoot it all the time. He'll do the same things. And I mean, Ant does watch a lot of Luka film, and he does kind of replicate a lot of those things and those actions. And to Jace's question, when he gets a guy on the elbow, is he going to pump? Is he going to do that step in, which he's become almost as good as Grayson Allen at doing on those step ins? Is he going to kick it to the corner? That's what makes Luka so good, is that he can also whip one to either corner, no look, right? I think Ant can do that, but I'm not going to push back on his mentality coming off of 15 for 21, being I should just keep shooting it. Because last night he was the only real option other than my new favorite bench player. So I think he's just this is him just kind of going through it. I mean, the defensive coverages last night, despite Dylan Brooks being out there, I thought he just had Jay said it looked like a hula hoop for him, the rim, compared to being guarded by Chris Dunn a couple nights ago. Also, apologies for everything I said about Chris Dunn as a shooter. That's on me. But yeah, last night he probably thought at some point during a game, right? You talked about first quarter, they're down, and second quarter, they're down, and then third quarter. It must be difficult at some point when you're on a heater to just go through the mental part of should I just be the only one that shoots, or should I continue to get my teammates involved? Think about just the human element of how difficult that must be of okay, we're still down 11 in the fourth quarter. At what point does making the right play is the right play for me to just shoot the basketball? And I think he's come so far in his development of that. But I don't even know. Like last night, like, would you have been happier if he would have just taken 14 shots in the fourth? Would they have had a better chance of winning that game? Maybe. And I think you can see, I mean, it's cool that he's open with you guys about it, but I think you can see that playing out in real time on the court of like, damn, like I'm on the elbow. Should I kick it to Nas in the corner, or is it just easier for me to just pull up for this 15-footer?
So I think the answer lives in the gray of it is based on how they're guarding. You know,
but that's what makes it hard, right? You know what I mean? Not to interrupt,
yeah.
The gray is like, if it was black and white, then it's like, dude, kick it to the corner, take the shot. The gray is what he is telling you is like, I'm struggling with the gray.
Yeah, and I think specific to how Phoenix was guarding it last night, I loved the inclusion of the mid-range and simple mid-range. That was when I was watching him get to the elbow and he's kind of given like the Shea shoulder sidestep pull. It reminded me of Kawhi. Like that's what it looked like to me, just because he's bigger there, and that's such an easy, repeatable shot for Shea too, but for Kawhi, given just like the physicality, the broadness of the shoulders, and being able to slowly step into a mid-range that you know how you can take over and over again. The like dirty little secret about Ant with his mid-range, if you look at the numbers, is the numbers are terrible throughout the entirety of his career. He's never shot over 40% from mid-range in his career. But that's because historically he has not been taking the same repeatable, simple mid-range shots. They've kind of come in scattered possessions, right? Because it's not something that is really baked into, it hasn't been something that's really like baked into his shot selection, right? They're looking to increase the three-point volume. They've been previous to that in his career, they've been looking to have him get all the way downhill to the rim and use that superpower of his athleticism, physicality, and finishing at the rim. So, you know, I was definitely putting up caution to really increasing the mid-range volume this season. When we were talking about it earlier this year, like in training camp, when he was talking about it. But what I said then too is it's about what type of mid-range shots you are taking there. And Phoenix last night, you know, they're sitting back in a drop. You're going to have a smaller, less strong guy guarding it at the point of attack pretty much every time, given that they're putting Brooks on Randall. That is the time for Ant to read that, discern that, and take 9 mid-range shots. I have absolutely no problem with that. The thing is it's gonna be different on Friday of how they guard him in Golden State, as it was different against the Clippers on Saturday. It was certainly different against the 2 games against the Pelicans, you know, last week, when they're putting 2 on the ball every single time. So the answer for Ant comes within the discernment of, given this coverage, what are the best shots for me to be taking in this position? And I think, honestly, Ant has gotten a lot better at that discernment. That said, it's a very tough test. That is a tough, confusing test for him to, you know, need to navigate on a night-to-night basis, because it's a different test every night. I think the biggest thing is Ant is now open to solving those tests and sitting down and doing the study and research, because it was a year ago that Ant started getting doubled all the time, and he was talking about how unfun it was and how annoying it was after that Boston game, right? Of like, I don't want to be doing this. I want to be a scorer. I don't want to be passing all the time. But he's changed his tune on that, and I think has a better understanding of what these coverages are. He talked about that after the game last night too.
Mentioned it, but does this feel kind of like the playoffs with what you're getting?
The way I'm getting guarded, I feel like every night is a playoff game. It's a tougher coverage. It's 2-3 people on the ball. Every time I get it, it's a tilt. It's fun though. I mean, last year it was frustrating, but like now I done seen everything, like breaking the film down, still finding ways to be aggressive. So it's fun.
And with that, all your guys are getting open shots too. I mean, is that kind of, are you looking at what that is generating?
Yeah, for sure. It's just like, I mean, if y'all gonna guard me like this, I know exactly where I want to pass the ball. Like tonight, we got a bunch of open looks. We just didn't make them, including myself, so it'll be all right.
About this time last year, you were talking about how frustrating it was. So what is that like, if it's not frustrating anymore? Like what happened over these last 12 months to not make it feel frustrating when you're getting all that attention?
Just like talking with I think communicating is the best thing. Like, hey, I'm gonna hit you right here and then bring it back to me. Like little stuff like that, I think that helps it. Cause once they bring the double, and then like I may hit Rudy, one guy got to rotate, and then my guy may relax, turn his head, and now I'm coming back off the ball, and it's hard for the big man to come back up and be in the double, so I'm coming downhill like him. So just, reading the game. Like, Anthony Hines let me know in the first 2 minutes, like, they doing this. So when they do this, we always got to counter.
Does that make sense, Kyle, of like, if they're, like, some people just be like, Ant, shoot more, or like, Ant, get to that mid-range, MJ, play like Shea, do these sort of things. Like, I'm not sure we all fully comprehend the idea that when they double you, when there's a screen at the top of the key and you're 30 feet from the basket, you literally like can't take a mid-range shot from there at that time, right? Like maybe you can try and sprint all the way around the double and meander your way back into the lane, and now here you are at 16 feet and you can take it. But I think for the most part, we would all acknowledge that that is not like really an option in that spot there. So I think it's a situation where us watching it, or him playing it, or the coaching staff watching it, needs to apply, the proper context of like what we want you to be attacking here in this matchup, Ant. And I think his understanding of that is growing, but when they are taking away some of those things, he's not consistently getting enough from the rest of the guys around him to be able to maybe force the team to change what that coverage is, so Ant can then click back into more of a primary scorer role against in a given game.
I thought everything he said, if you wanted like one silver lining, I just thought everything he said post game to you guys was really awesome, because I really do think he's explaining to you the process that he's trying to go through. Back to the mid-range stuff for a second. You said he was 7 for 9. So he's 15 for 21 on the night. He was 7 for 9 from mid-range. He was 7 for 7 from mid-range in the first 46 minutes. The two misses from mid-range were kind of like, okay, game's on the line. So I have no problem with that. But if he took 9 from the mid-range and he took 7 from 3, that means he took 5 at the rim. It's just kind of like dumbed down math. And I think there should have probably been a little more it was hard for Phoenix to stop him getting to the rim when he wanted to. But again, this is kind of that gray area of, I think sometimes he's like, well, what's the point of going to the rim? I don't get the same whistle as guys, and I settle for the mid-range. Like, if he's going to take more mid-range shots, I'm more concerned about it hurting his ability to get to the rim than I am about him taking less threes. I mean, this is all about the shot diet stuff. But yeah, I just think it's interesting to hear him continue to talk about it, because he's not Luka and he's not even Shea yet. He does have years to get there, but it's cool to hear him talk it out, because you can kind of see the computer processing, right? After the game as well as in the game. And, again, last night, I think he only had 2 assists, 1 turnover. But I mean, do you think the 2 assists were because he wasn't passing the ball, or was it more of what you just said of when he did get his other guys involved? Dante, Julius, Jaden, and Nas were like 4 for 26.
Right.
So,
I would note. Go ahead.
No, you go.
I was just going to say, okay, so Phoenix is in a drop, right? So they're having Williams come all the way back to the rim. So the goal there, if you're Phoenix, is you are prioritizing above all else against Ant, limiting stuff at the rim. It's not like they're giving the other things, but that's your number one priority if that's the way you're playing, right? And I would need to look at what those last 2 mid-range shots were in the fourth quarter. But who wasn't in the game in the fourth quarter was Rudy Gobert, because he got ejected, and I want to do a whole thing on that later. But what was happening earlier in the game? What was Rudy Gobert doing a good job of punishing Phoenix at the rim?
Offensive rebounds.
They're finding him on offensive rebounds, finding him on lobs at the basket there. So again, I would need to go look at what those 2 plays are, but I think theoretically it makes sense, right? If I'm Phoenix and I'm saying, okay, Rudy's out of the game here, let's be a little bit more intentional about trying to take away a little bit more of the middle of the floor where Ant is here, because there isn't that lob threat there behind me. And I think part of, at least I know when watching it, when Rudy was out there, part of the reason that Ant was able to be successful playing from the floor is there was the threat of Rudy either for the lob or on the offensive glass, when if I'm Mark Williams now, I need to not only be thinking about the lob, I got to be thinking about if I contest this here on Ant, then Rudy's right here for the offensive rebound, even if Ant misses it there. So I do think an important piece of the heavy mid-range games is the presence of Rudy Gobert on this out there at the same time, because he's the only guy on the team, on the Wolves team, that presents a lob threat at the rim and an offensive rebounding threat at the basket there too. So my point is, I think that those are somewhat correlated.
And again, 40 points on 15 of 21, 3 for 7 from 3, and 7 for 9 from the free throw line. I think game in and game out, right? It's what you do. You kind of criticize. Like I said, if you and I would have done a podcast after that Clippers game, I would have been pretty critical just of Ant's overall kind of production. And like maybe he should have leaned into just being more of a role player with a bunch of guys that were hooping. They won the game. It's all fine. But last night, I'm just not comfortable breaking down these games being like Mahomes had 350 passing yards, 4 touchdowns, but man, he only got 8 yards on that rush and not 10. Like Anthony Edwards was about as good as you could have last night on some sort of illness. And last night in one game, like everyone else kind of let him down. So I'm not going to nitpick the fact that he did miss 2 mid-range shots towards the end, when it's like at some point throughout a 48-minute game, and I don't think you were either, but at some point throughout a 48-minute game, there does have to, I don't know if you can always make the right play. Like at some point there does have to be like, I just have to try to win this because my other guys don't got it. Or inverse of like, I don't have to try to take, because in that Clippers game that I keep referencing, he subbed in like the 5-minute mark or 6-minute mark with Julius, and they're running and they're playing, beautiful euphoria basketball. And he took 3 mid-range shots. He missed them all. Right. And it's like, you didn't really need that in that moment. You should have just kept spinning the ball to the guys who had the hot hands. So last night I thought he did everything.
That's the discernment, right?
Yeah. Like, and that's it, right? Like
the context of the matchup. Right.
So I thought last night he did everything he could to get them the win. And I think whether it be a lack of production from his teammates, or maybe you just want to go into selfish actions by his teammates, that's why they lost the game.
Today's show is brought to you by Falling Knife Brewing Company. And wouldn't it be nice to go out on New Year's Eve, but be home by 10 p.m.? That's what New Year's early at Falling Knife Brewing Company is all about. The party on New Year's Eve starts at 6 p.m., but at 8 p.m. is when they do the New Year's Eve countdown. They got confetti cannons that fire, and then the party is over by 10 p.m. So you are home before the Ubers get expensive. New Year's early at Falling Knife is a ticketed event, and the tickets are $90, but included with your tickets are not only all you can drink Falling Knife beer, but also all you can eat from an elevated menu from Rectangle Pizza. If you would like to purchase a ticket, there is a link in the show notes to this episode on YouTube and in your podcast player. Feel free to obviously discuss it with friends and family, decide if it's what you want to do, and then come back to the show notes to purchase some tickets if you would like to celebrate New Year's early at Falling Knife. I actually think there's a Wolves game that day at like 2 p.m. too. You can make it New Year's Eve all day at Falling Knife. Also, this weekend, Falling Knife Friday night, Wolves Warriors, 9 p.m. start. Should be a blast in the tap room. I would love it if you went over to Falling Knife Brewing Company for a Wolves game, but also I think New Year's early will be fun as well. Today's show is also brought to you by Prize Picks, and if you have been eliminated from your fantasy football league's playoffs, that does not mean that you can't play fantasy football this week. You could put together a lineup at Prize Picks, but rather than starting or sitting a player, what you do is you pick more or less than on a specific stat line for a player, and you can put together a lineup already using the Tampa Bay Bucks or Atlanta Falcons players for Thursday night. That's the first game, obviously, of the week. And in that one, I will take Bucky Irving to have more than 18.5 receiving yards, and Kirk Cousins, yes, Kirk Cousins, to throw for more than 207.5 passing yards. Prize Picks has these numbers for every main player in every main game for the NFL games. And all you need to do is pick more or less than on 2 or more players' stats to create a lineup. If you do not yet have a Prize Picks account, you know the drill. Promo code Dane when you sign up, and you will receive $50 in free lineups when you play your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks.com or the Prize Picks app using promo code Dane when you create your account. Yeah, the one teammate he did get some production from surrounding him off the bench. To move to our second question was Bones Hyland. Rob Dillignham has been checking into the game about 2 minutes into the second quarter, right? That's kind of been his spot. He doesn't get in the first quarter, but Rob kind of sneaks in at the beginning of the second quarter. And we saw Chris Finch at the beginning of the second quarter go to Bones Hyland in that exact spot. A question I had going into post game afterwards was, was this a reaction to the Wolves kind of playing flat in the first quarter, or was going to Bones Hyland a premeditated thing in that game? And I asked Bones about it afterwards, and he said he was told by the coaching staff. He has been told by the coaching staff in the games that he has played that you are going to be playing tonight. So there was a premeditation, at least for last night's game, that that Bones Hyland was going to be playing in the rotation over Rob Dillignham. Rob Dillignham did not play in tonight's game. So my second question I have written down is Bones Hyland now in the rotation over Rob Dillignham? And the second part I have to it, just to stay on the point guard question, is, and has Mike Conley's offense completely dried up there? But let's start with the Bones specific piece of it, how he played, but also just, do you think Bones Hyland is now the backup point guard deal that Rob Dillignham had been thus far this year?
I'm kind of scrambling because I threw this lob about a selfish teammate and thought we were going to talk about Rudy, but we'll talk about Rudy. But the Bones Hyland thing is the bigger story. You're right, because
it's more fun.
Yeah, and if we're going to have fun with it, I mean, this is definitely a hot take for sports radio, but I definitely found myself last night and this morning wondering if Rob Dillignham will ever play again for them. Like, that's, I don't think we can say that's hyperbolic or prisoner of the moment stuff, because at some point, I mean, the thing that stood out for me post game was when someone asked Finch a question. He's like, yo, man, 24 games in, like, we needed a change. That sounded like him replying to himself about 2 nights ago or 3 nights ago. And he was like, well, we're committed to giving them minutes. Well, no longer are they committed to giving them minutes. He's like, fuck that. Like, I just need to play the guys that give me a chance to win. And plus minus is an absurd stat. I tweeted it out even, but like, I thought Bones had some turnovers last night, and we should really talk about Bones and Rob and Mike all in one segment here. But Bones was a +7 last night, a team high. Not super meaningful to me. What's meaningful to me is in the fourth quarter, down 11 with 8:34 left. A team that has no one else giving him offense other than Ant. Bones hits a runner. Next possession, they get a stop. Bones hits a 3. Next possession, they get a stop. Bones gets the rebound, turns it over. Next possession, Bones gets a steal. If you remember, he drove kind of 1-on-3, missed the layup, and gets a jumper. They're down 4, but they had a kind of a Bones little run there led by himself. They come back out of the break. Bones hits a 3 with 5:14 left. Immediately subbed out for Mike Conley. Mike Conley comes in, misses a shot, has a turnover, fouls Grayson Allen, and then Finch goes back to Bones Hyland. Yeah. And it kind of crystallized to me in the moment what frustrates people about Chris Finch, because Bones Hyland is volatile. He is, at this point, a clearly better scorer than Rob Dillignham. He's had more time in the league to develop, but he hit 4 threes last night in 16 minutes. Rob has 6 threes in 213 minutes this season on a team that needs offensive punch. Okay, but Bones gets a little caffeinated, and he's going to turn the ball over. And I know that drives Chris Finch crazy. I think last night at one point it was like 24-12. The Timberwolves had more turnovers than the Suns. And he trusts Mike to not turn the ball over. But there's really, and this sucks, right? Because Minnesota Mike and all the stuff behind the scenes. What, to your point about the offense drying up, what else are you getting from Mike Conley? He got in the lane last night for that little floater, dried up. He took this weird 3 when Ant was to the slot, and it's like, you know what? That guy's just kind of cooking right now. Maybe everything I do should just be to get the ball to Ant. Mike's parked in the corner. Like, there's just, at this point, I don't know how you can look at what Mike does and Rob does and say that those guys should play over Bones. And again, I know Bones you can think of when he drives and he throws it to Jaden, it's a turnover. There is some volatility there, but there's also production paired with that volatility. And Mike turns the ball over, and Rob turns the ball over, and Bones turns the ball over. But one of those guys is giving you instant offense, pull-up transition threes, a little more size. So I know it sounds lunacy on December 9th, and we still have, I think, 2 months till the trade deadline. I don't know how, if, or when Finch will ever go back to Rob. I just don't. I think this team now is like Bones just gives us a better chance. This 2 timeline shit is going to be, I think, the focus of the next couple months because the young guys, and I have a stat for you I'd like to read at some point, but he just is going to have to start going with the guys who give him more. And I think Bones Hyland, I mean, those 4 minutes where he subbed Mike in, I'm not firing the coach because of a bad substitution, but there was no reason for Mike Conley to sub back into the game. But you know why he did it? Just to close, and I'll throw it to you. Because in that Clippers game, Mike had to sprint down and steal the ball. Remember that in transition late in the game, he like sprints down, saves it, throws it to Julius, gets back in the corner, hits a 3 on a grenade from Julius. And then the winning play, Naz Reid, is led by Mike attacking the closeout, kicking it to Ant, like making the right play. So I think in Finch's mind, he's like, Mike does all these winning plays, but I think they are fewer and fewer in between now than they've ever been. And I think at some point you just have to rip the cord, rip the Band-Aid off, and trust the guy who gives you the most highs and not worry about the lows.
Yeah, I don't agree with that, but I hear what you're saying. I mean, the thing I would say about Mike is, of the 3, I think you're getting the least turnovers. Like, if we were to run it 100 times, right? Would you agree with that?
100%.
Maybe this one's a little bit more given the slump that he's in. I would say Mike's the best 3-point shooter of the 3. Would you agree with that?
I mean, I have to play this small.
I'm saying it's close.
No, I'm just saying like the small sample
say
size.
Mike Conley is.
Yeah, I mean, again, I only saw Bones hit 4 of 6 threes, but in one game, right? So I can't tell you like, well, I think Bones is a better shooter, but looked pretty damn well last night, hitting big threes in the fourth quarter. But that's fine. Keep it going.
Yeah. This is like broader strokes right here. Just like generally speaking, I think Mike's going to give you fewer turnovers, better 3-point shooting, and better decision making in the aggregate in clutch time. That's why he was even in at the end of the game, in the Clippers game, and at the end of the game last night. That is a reaction by Finch to the Wolves having messed up clutch time over and over again this season, right? Late in games. They made the switch to, okay, we're going back to our closing games with Mike Conley, kind of no matter how well Mike has played in the first, 39 minutes of the game or whatever. And I get that, because that'd be hypocritical of me to be like, what are you guys doing in clutch time? You do not have enough ball control. You do not have those things to make good decisions at the end of games. So I think it can be true that Mike is going to give you fewer turnovers, give you better threes, and give you better decision making in clutch time. But there is a gaping issue of nothing else. He is not giving them anything else offensively within the 3-point arc, and teams are guarding him accordingly. I mean, that walk down for a wide open floater in the fourth quarter is actually just kind of sad. Like when Mike missed that, it was kind of one of those, like, Mike's my guy. Like I like Mike. I've really thought what he's brought to this team since he's been here has been just huge on and off the court. But that to me was like, okay, this might just be dead. This part of his game might be dead, which if you follow Mike Conley back to the Utah and Memphis days, like that was the thing, right? It was the Mike Conley floater and pick and roll action. If they're sticking 2 on the big here in this action, Mike's going to take that, 8-foot floater. Mike Conley from floater range this season, that short mid-range, 4 to 14 feet, is shooting 26.7% from that range. There are only 2 players in the NBA who have taken more short mid-range shots this season and made them at a lower clip than Mike Conley, which is to say 27% is awful from that range. One of the 2 players, do you remember Ray J. Dennis was on the Pacers? He played in that game for Indiana when Indiana came in. He was like their backup point guard.
He sounds like a guy that had a song on one of the Now albums. Ray J.
Exactly.
Dennis.
He has since been cut by the Pacers. But Ray J. Dennis is at 26% from short mid-range. The other player who has taken more short mid-range shots and shot them at a lesser clip than Mike Conley, other than Ray J. Davis, is Rob Dillignham this season. Which that's just in and of itself is very concerning. 19% from Rob from 4 to 14 feet. this season. So I say that to mean in both Mike Conley and Rob Dillingham, you have gotten extremely little production within the 3-point arc from those guys, which in and of itself, to me, absolutely justifies the inclusion of Bones Hyland back in the mix as he was kind of at the beginning of the season. Because even if Mike is giving you fewer turnovers, better 3-point shooting, and better decision-making in clutch time, the things he's not doing, it's just such a drop-off from even where it was a year ago, and frankly, a huge drop-off from where it was, 3 years ago after they traded for him from Utah at the deadline there. So, yeah, I'm with the Bones experiment experience. But I do think it would be wrong to say he's better at everything than the other two 2-point guard options there. But yeah, for the time being, my answer to the question would be: is Bones now in the rotation over Dillingham? Yeah, I think so. I think this was a shift, and one that Bones earned. He grabbed that opportunity and he got the second shift in the second half because he played well in his first shift. Rob Dillingham, when he gets his first opportunity in the first half, often doesn't come back into the game in the second half because he didn't do much in those 7 minutes that he played in the first half there. So I thought it was an example of Finch rewarding a player for actually doing something in their first shift. Bones not only came back in, but then he also came back in to close at the end there.
Okay, so circle back because you started off that segment by saying I disagree with you. So I want to modify or just alter. I'm not saying that Bones Hyland is better at everything. So that's a great point that you pointed out. I'm thinking of the Madden ratings again, where it's like if you just did all the different stats, like Bones, Rob, and Mike, who has a chance to dive on the ball for a loose ball? Right now, I just think it's Bones. I think he's more athletic, hungry, he's a little bigger. Who has a better chance to not let Grayson Allen just get him right to the bucket of those two guys?
That's a good one to add.
It's Bones Hyland. And it is tough. I'm going to speak for myself for a second because it's like, yeah, man, like Mike Conley is like the coolest guy in the locker room. And it's tough to see. I mean, this is apples and hand grenades, but if you watch some Laker games right now, it's like the GOAT just it's kind of over. Like LeBron James doesn't have all the stuff anymore that he used to have. And him and Mike are two of the oldest guys in the league. And it's more Luka's team. That's why it's more Ant's team. But I just, to your point of like the other stuff, it's not even like a 4 out of 10 anymore. It's a 0. And I think Mike is I would trust Mike to hit a 3 in the corner or in the slot more than I would Bones. But I'm looking at this of like Madden ratings, like overall, who do you trust more? And one of the things I think they like about Rob, or the envision of Rob, is pushing pace. Well, who's going to push pace more, Rob or Mike? Right? Like Rob. So I just think in totality, like, yes, this goes back to the volatility thing of, and this goes back even deeper to like Chris Finch being a conservative when it comes to coaching. Like, I understand the fear of bringing in bench players or backup guards or whatever and not wanting them to turn the ball over. But at some point, and I think this has happened to Rob, like you do got to let the quarterback take a fucking throw on 3rd and 8, right? You can't just run the ball. And I think Bones Hyland last night had a couple interceptions, but he also got the offense moving and he hit timely shots and he gave you more defensive. I mean, none of those guys are good defenders, but he at least gave you a little more. I mean, the things that concern me now, when you watch the last 10 games specifically, Mike Conley is like second on the team right now and making kind of boneheaded fouls, like behind Jalen Clark, who we love Jalen Clark, but it's like, if Mike's losing that too, and that like mental edge, or some of the like
I think that's just like being physically diminished, right? It's like these guys are just faster than you. Yeah.
It sucks. It sucks to watch LeBron not be able to elevate when he goes to the rim in Philly. But like that is age. That is the whole father time is undefeated shit. Yeah. And I just think, I mean, Mike Conley's a legend in these parts because of they needed so much from Mike since the D'Lo trade. And in that first year and that second year, like there's no shame in that. But the coaching staff has to come to grips with like, yes, he hit a corner 3 against the Clippers, which I think we're all already overlooking how big the corner 3 was. Julius throws him a grenade. He hits that. That kept him in the game. He gets that steal after the Wolves turn the ball over in transition. He finds Ant, and then finds Nas. But I think that's happening now once every 7 games rather than 2 years ago, it was like once every 2 games, Minnesota Mike winning play. And at this point, I mean, again, this is you and me, I just going back and forth on Bones versus Mike. Just to segue quick to Rob, I really do believe it, actually. I'm not just being hyperbolic. I really wonder if Rob will ever play again because I just don't know. Like, he doesn't do either of those. Like, he's not better than Bones. He's not better than Mike. How's he going to see the floor? And I think that's a bummer. But I also, as you start to get into trade season, like, I just wonder if at some point they're just going to have to cut their losses and say it's better for both parties here if you get a fresh start and we get a fresh start.
I think that can be true. And yet he also plays sometime in the next 2 months before the trade deadline. You know, like, I would anticipate we see Rob Dillignham again, but I take your point. Your point is like, maybe this string is kind of like getting close to being played out. And for all the reasons, you know, that we've talked about, not least of Rob's lack of production when he's played, but some of the other things where they made the trade on draft night for Rob Dillignham when they really had a need for a player who could be a point guard and break the paint and get in there and score. Like, they drafted him to do those things. And that was something that group really needed at that time, June 2024. But come September 2024, they made a trade for Julius Randle and Dante DiVincenzo that mitigated that need and that role that Rob Dillignham was supposed to fulfill. Like that, I've said it many times. People are probably like, oh, here goes Dane again. But like, that's a critical part to this whole story of Rob Dillignham not having worked out through his first 110 games in the NBA. But it's the story. They do have Julius Randle. They do have Dante DiVincenzo, and they got Johan Berenger in that trade too. I just think part of that trade now is that they kind of sent out Rob Dillignham in it too. And I still don't know if that makes it in the aggregate a bad trade for them. You know, I think in many ways, the Randle, DiVincenzo, and Berenger for Cat, given the salaries, is a pretty marked win for this team in that it allowed them to re-sign Naz Reid when they wouldn't have been able to. Naz Reid plus Julius Randle make the same amount of money as Cat. Like, you know the story. But yeah, that's just, I think in any conversation, particularly if we're starting to like chisel in like dash 2025 on the Rob Dillignham gravestone, like we got to tell that part of the story there too, because that's the piece of it that I have empathy for Rob Dillignham.
Oh, for sure.
Not the production though. I think I've seen Rob Dillignham have 2 good games in his career against Boston and Houston last season. I think that's pretty much it. Maybe somebody could pull, 1 or 2 other ones, but you say 1 out of 7 for Mike. We're talking about like 2 out of 100 for Rob, or maybe 75 or something like that he's played in there. So yeah.
And one thing, this isn't a stat, although this podcast specifically and me love birthdays. The one thing that should be mentioned a little more, because these 3 guys, Mike Conley, Rob Dillignham, Bones Hyland, it's a little bit like the 3 Bears. We kind of just talked about all of their production, but also Mike Conley's well north of 30, right? Like Mike Conley's 38 and Rob Dillingham's 20. Bones Hyland has been in the league what appears to be like a decade. He just turned 25. So he is kind of like, when we think, well, if they go to Bones, like, are they just mortgaging the future? I don't know, man. He's 20. Like, he's in Ant's timeline. Like, I don't know if you have the clip, but Ant had a lot of glowing, and Ant had that one time where he stood up in New York or whatever, media wise, like, I want to do my media with Rob. And he said some nice things. The things that Anthony Edwards said about Bones Hyland last night were another one of those. I'm really glad you do post-game media, because I thought it was eye-opening.
Today's show is brought to you by BetterHelp, and the holiday season is obviously the season of traditions, putting up the tree, getting together with the family at mom's. We all have our family traditions, but they're all very busy, time-consuming, and can sometimes be exhausting. I think this holiday season, mix in the tradition of taking some time for yourself, going on a walk, reading a book, finding some time for peace amongst the chaos. And for me, one of those times where I take time for myself is through therapy. And I think this December, having that time is going to be a great way for me to end the year with more clarity. And if you want to try and find that clarity through BetterHelp, a major advantage of BetterHelp is their ability to match you with the right therapist for you. BetterHelp does the initial matching work for you so you can focus on your therapy goals. A short questionnaire helps identify your needs and preferences, and their 12 plus years of experience and industry-leading match fulfillment rate means they typically get it right the first time. But if you aren't happy with your match, you can switch to a different therapist at any time from their tailored recommendations. This December, start a new tradition by taking care of you. Our listeners get 10% off at betterhelp.com/DaneMoore. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/DaneMoore. Yeah, here's that clip, Anthony Edwards on Bones Hyland.
Offensive spark from Bones coming off the bench in this game. Sometimes you guys haven't had a ton of scoring off the bench this year. What did that bring?
That's my boy. I've been a fan of him for the last 3 years. 2 years was when he wasn't with us, and then the last, I think we've been here for 3 years, maybe 2 years since we got him. I watch him work out. He work out with me. I watch him play. I don't even stay and watch Sizzle, but since he plays in Sizzle, I stay and watch Sizzle. If you've seen him play, you know he's incredible at basketball. So just a matter of time until he gets out there and he showed why he belonged tonight.
And what do you like just about his game overall?
Everything. Yeah. Sometimes you could just see some people just are meant to be a star, and I feel like I may not know the criteria to being a star, but if I think I do, I think he's one of them.
We always talk about, by the way, like Rob Dillignham order of operations came before the Karl-Anthony Towns trade that brought them Dante. Rob Dillignham was also acquired before Tim Conley got his other kind of hooper in Bones Hyland, right? Because there were many years. There is an article that you can Google deep down the internet archives of people being like, when Bones was hooping for the Nuggets, should the Wolves flip Naz Reid for Bones Hyland? Well, Tim did it. He got them both. But that's another one of those things where it's like, right now in any game, right, you have one bullet in the chamber. Are you going to go to Bones Hyland or Rob Dillignham right now? You're going to go to Bones. And again, this is all, I find myself empathizing with the Rob situation, but that's why I just come back to like, I wonder if they'll just eventually cut losses, and we'll talk about that down the road. And I wonder if it'd be better for all parties involved to have a new split. But those comments from Ant, I'll throw it back to you, is like, I think that's meaningful stuff to see him kind of light up and be like, I can trust that guy. I trust that guy to hit shots. I trust him being a running mate in clutch moments.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think it's telling. I mean, I knew to some extent that Bones and Ant were cool. I did not know the degree to which Anthony Edwards has been an advocate for Bones Hyland to be playing this season. I mean, we interviewed Bones after the game too, and he talked about Ant. Actually, you know what? I have that one too. I'm just gonna play that as well.
Yeah, he's been a big advocate for me. Even when I was with the Clippers, if you go back to the game we played them at home when I was on the Clippers, after the game, I was just talking to all of them, and I can just feel the love, the support that they had of me. And Ant's a big advocate. He's talked to the coaches every day concerning me. He has my back, even in the summertime. He's like, we got to re-sign Bones, and that's just something I appreciate, especially coming from a superstar like Ant. That's something he don't have to do. He got other things to worry about. Team-based, just things like that. So I'm very appreciative of that, how much he supported me, and thankful.
I mean, that was the interesting line there too. One, advocating for re-signing Bones this summer, which took a while. And then, I mean, Bones is on a partially guaranteed minimum contract right now, like fringe roster piece. But Ant advocated for that. And Ant, according to Bones, is talking to the coaching staff daily, advocating, for Bones to play. And I do want to just say that a lot of this will be read as an indictment of Rob.
Yep.
And like Ant being anti-Rob. And I get why you would perceive it that way. And I guess I would just ask you to trust me that, like, I don't think that when Ant is talking about this, he sees it in the same direct way of if Bones, not Rob. When even though that's for sure true, like, you know what I mean? Like, that's for sure the case. Like, if Bones is playing, then like Rob's probably not playing. I I've just interviewed Ant enough times to know when he like this has happened previously too, where he heaps praise on a guy who gets an opportunity. He's like done it in the past when like Rudy was out, and I don't think that meant in Ant's mind that they shouldn't play, like that Rudy Gobert sucks, like that.
Yeah.
I don't think that's what was going on here. Still, at the same time, I think what Ant is advocating for is this would probably be the best option for us right now, which, as you and I just went through, like we concur. Like I think that's true. I think for me, Kyle, what I'd be cool with right now of like action items is not to eliminate Mike from the rotation. He has a very small role, doesn't play that many minutes as is, but just giving Bones the Rob, the true Rob opportunity, the shift in the first half and the second half, right? And then leaving Mike where he is. I think to me, that would be the best way to pursue this going forward, because I do think even just with that one game, and Bones wasn't bad at the beginning of the year when he was playing. I do think Bones has earned that, but I would also be surprised if Mike was just deleted from the rotation. I would expect the change as well to be Bones in the Rob role that's maybe gets a second shift, and Mike Conley to keep kind of doing this minimal role that he's been doing.
And I'll close on this, and then we can switch topics. But as you hearken back to Media Day of this year, the best person to come up to the podium was Bones Hyland, because I thought he was the most vulnerable and transparent about how, like, I had one foot in Europe. I kind of thought at 24 or 25, he just turned 25, like that my NBA career was kind of over. And one of the things, we haven't really talked about the fact what the Suns did last night, but one of the things I know coming from Bones and is stamped by what you just said about his contract status, he might be the most desperate, hungry player on the roster. And that's the type of guy that's going to dive out of bounds, dive on the floor for a loose ball, do all the shit that a lot of guys who make a lot more money or draft a lot higher or have a more solidified role aren't doing. And I know we joked about the big Ray glue, but I just think this team lacks, and it's so apparent when you watch a Phoenix Suns team that has a bunch of guys that, yes, the Timberwolves were far more talented last night than the Suns, but that Suns team tried 300% more than the Wolves. And I think that's another thing that Bones Hyland can do, because he is kind of in that middle porridge of age. Like, he's only 25 years old. He can do a lot of the stuff that Mike just can no longer do, while also having the production that you just haven't seen from Rob.
Let's move over to another question. The next one I have down is just, can they actually win without Rudy? As that had kind of become, a theory over the last 2 weeks, where they'd been closing games with Rudy Gobert on the bench and kind of rolling with that Reed and Randall look to get more offense, and then playing some zone to make up for Rudy not being out there defensively. It was leading to the question, I think, entering last night of like, how much can this team win without Rudy? They're doing a pretty good job. Those non-Rudy minutes have been improving over the course of the year. I think last night showed kind of the truth of what the story has been there, where, yeah, you can close with Reed and Randall. That makes sense. They've done it for profit numerous times in the last 2 weeks. But this team does still need the presence of Rudy Gobert for defensive purposes, for offensive rebounding purposes at the rim, for that release valve, on the short roll in pick and roll game, or just to play pick and roll game there. I don't think they can actually win without Rudy Gobert. And I think that game reminded us of that a little bit. I do want to get into that, but I will just note that Johan Berenger was just sent down to the Iowa Wolves. We just got that notification official. I was told last night the plan there is going to be that Berenger is going to go down there for the next 3 games, kind of in advance of the G League showcase, just to get some more time to develop, because he hasn't been playing at all. So, we've just, at least in passing, brought up Berenger and the possibility of playing him at some point, but with no Rudy for the final 15, 18, whatever minutes of the game last night, that wasn't a lever that Finch wanted to pull. Was okay, let's go to our backup center. They just relied on the Reed and Randall minutes the rest of the way. And that's because I think, as is indicated by this move of having Berenger go down to the G, is they still need a little bit more development from him, or want to see more of that before actually giving him an opportunity, even in a pressing situation like last night. So yeah, Rudy.
Do you think Johan drove to Des Moines, or did he fly?
Him and Dell just.
Hey, we're gonna send you down there. But speaking of development, why don't you just take I-29 south? Cool Berenger note, like that's cool, because again, I'm the way I will just say this on my end, the way that people behind the scenes talk about him, to me, is vastly different than they talk about any of the other young guys. So I know you can kind of be like down on all the young guys, and I still want to read my stat at some point, but the Berenger stuff, to me, like he's in a different class. So I hope he gets some time in Des Moines. Like I said, the Wolves don't play again until Friday in Golden State. It's this weird NBA Cup week. The Rudy stuff last night. Is it fair to say, do you think that Rudy was having, before he was ejected, maybe his best game of the season? Or
I don't know about
up there?
I thought I saw some people saying that. I didn't feel that it was. I thought he was helpful for sure. I think the best thing he can do for this team offensively is consistently be a force on the offensive glass, and just kind of, again, it is kind of like the run game in football. I think when you are sending your center every single time, like the middle linebacker kind of needs to stay, the center needs to stay with him. And I think that does open up some of the middle of the floor, as we talked about with Ant from the mid-range. If you look at Rudy Gobert's offensive rebound column over the last 15 games, thumbs up there for sure. I didn't think he was doing a great job in coverage defensively. I thought Phoenix was having as much success against the Wolves drop coverage as the Wolves were having against Phoenix's drop coverage there. And I thought it was a bad hands game from Rudy too. But even with all of those things, he was clearly very much helping that game. And I think if he doesn't get ejected from that game, I think the Wolves probably win it. I think that the game was that close. It was that type of margin. And we do the Rudy against bad teams, Rudy against teams with injured stars. That's when he puts up his numbers. Well, the reality of the situation during the regular season in the NBA in 2025 is most games you don't get a team either at full strength, or you don't get a team that's good. And that's like 60% of the games in the NBA. And Rudy in those games is really helpful. We could do that as an indictment to him of what he can't do in the 40% of games when maybe you would need a little bit more out of him. But Rudy does give you that baseline against bad injured teams, and it makes a difference in your regular season win total. I thought last night was a perfect example of that, even if I just thought he was playing a good, not great game.
And with that said, I agree with everything you just said. It is complete bullshit and one of the most selfish actions I've seen in a long time that he got ejected. Because if we're going to glaze him for being a winner and a team first guy, he made no play at the basketball last night in a game where if he stays on the court, they win it just because of how good I thought he was playing. And I get it, man. I'm just going to do it because it kind of pisses some people off. For some reason, when I play pickup twice a week, I get hit in the face once a week, and it does kind of wear on you to get hit in the face. But how many times have you watched any pro sport where it's never the initial action, it's the reaction? And I know he got hit in the face by Mark Williams a couple possessions earlier, and I know he gets hit in the face a lot. And I know the team sends videos to the league being like, dude, our center gets whacked all the time. But for him to do that last night was a pivotal part of, if you're team first and a winner, taking yourself. I mean, it's one thing when Finch doesn't close with him. It's a lot different when you say, I'm going to remove myself from this play by chopping a guy in the ribs midair. Because if that was reversed, the Wolves would have lost their shit, right? Rudy's up in the air going for one of those kind of Jaden dumped off, and Rudy's going for a dunk. I thought he was playing really well, and maybe it wasn't the best game of the season, but I thought last night he was dominant offensive glass. They had no answer for him. And for him to remove himself from a game that, they kind of needed to win to keep the streak going or whatever. I thought that was, again, I'm not like saying trade him or like all the good stuff he's ever done, but I hate that stuff. I hate selfish activities. And I thought that was a selfish play. There was no play on the ball. And he was mad because he got hit in the face. He was mad because I don't know if it was Nas out there, something like no one helped to recover. He does get upset like that. But man, like even when he got hit by Mark Williams, I think you pointed out like he wanted to go at Mark Williams. Like he balled up a fist. And it's like we would not be cool with that if Julius did it or Jaden did it or anyone else. And I don't think you're cool with it by any means or anyone is.
Yeah.
That was a selfish action that I think put Ant in a bad spot, his teammates in a bad spot. And I don't care what the initial action is. You have to be bigger than that as a 4-time defensive player of the year, future Hall of Famer, whatever. I thought that was bad. And ran.
I mean, there's nothing new. This getting hit in the head thing. I mean, we
have those time. I get it.
In last night's. Yeah, Rudy is extremely reactive to getting bumped in the head. I mean, wasn't that against the last Phoenix game too, right? Where it was the end of the game and it was like kind of a fast break situation and Rudy was going up to like finish a layup or dunk and all like 5'11" of Colin Gillespie like reached up to contest it, but can't reach that high and also hit Rudy in the head on that play. And Rudy kind of like walked into the underneath the basket fan area where Gillespie was, like maybe not with a fist balled up that time, but he is extraordinarily, to a degree I've never seen from any other player ever, sensitive about getting touched in the head. Because there's been times where it's not hits in the head. I agree. He gets whacked, and I know they do that too. And they send it in, and he gets beat up. But he is sensitive to the touch of his head. And I mean, I don't know, personal thing, whatever it might be. If you've been watching this team for the 4 years Rudy Gobert is on it, you have literally seen Rudy have an outsized reaction to getting hit/touched in the head 80 times. I mean, no joke. It is emotionally jarring for him. And I don't know what exactly is behind that, but what's not okay to do is to let that ball up in emotion and faint at getting into a fight for it, because that would have definitely got him ejected if he would have gotten into a fight with Mark Williams after Mark Williams hit him in the head. And then it's not okay. It was like 2 possessions later, right? That was a dirty play. Like going in, we would have said that if it had happened to him on the other side, because it wasn't a play on the ball. He hit him in the ribs. And I think Rudy has these like emotional outbursts like in his mind for a very zen dude that like just come up for like 8 seconds. It's the Kyle Anderson punch.
I was gonna say
no, right? I mean, like
right. No, it's a great
for real. Like
callback.
No, but this is like a thing in Rudy. And then afterwards, he's like, I lost my head. You know, that's not okay. Championship habits, whatever. I mean, you even saw when he hit Mark Williams there, immediately he went down to like go help him up. I think in 2 seconds, he knew he made a dirty play and lost his head and did that there. That doesn't excuse it, but I think it's like representative of these like burbles of time where Rudy just like blacks out in anger. It's literally like two or 3 seconds. But I don't understand why the hit to the head thing is what triggers it. But again, for the people listening to this who watch Wolves games all the time, know that reaction from Rudy was not unique to getting hit in the head. At least the balling up his fist one, Arthur meme style was,
and
that's not unique. That's not unique.
And
not okay. And not okay. Like that can't happen. It's just
because the reality is, and this isn't a hot take, if Mark Williams doesn't get up, the guy that we just kind of blew smoke up his ass about how much of a winner he is, and I believe that in my heart of hearts. Like I think a major part, not the biggest, but a major part of this organizational turnaround and being a good contending team is because of Rudy Gobert. But if he's a winner and he does all these selfless things and all this shit, if Mark Williams doesn't get up, Rudy's not playing on Friday and Rudy's not playing on Sunday. Like if Mark Williams breaks his arm, that's like a 4-game suspension for, again, an action that was completely uncalled for. So I wanted Rudy Gobert out there. Like I wanted him to close. I thought he was that good. And it's a lot of that keep that same energy shit of Ant gets hit in the head all the time when he drives, right? And like we get up on him of being like, you know what, like throwing his hands up in the air. He's never retaliated by like stepping under a guy shooting a 3-pointer. And I just think for a team right now that is, you know, yes, they're still on pace for 51 wins and their projection was 48.5 and stuff, but they need their veteran players to act like veteran players and adults. And we just said, like in segment 1 or 2, Mike's a vet, but he just doesn't got it anymore. Rudy still has it. Rudy is, to me, very, very, very important. And for him to just decide on his own, whether it be he blacked out for a moment to remove himself from that situation, that's tough, man. That's a tough look for a team that needed him out there. And then it segued into, I mean, unless you have anything else on, like just some weird coaching stuff of now Jaden's the backup 5, but Jaden's picking guys up full court. So now there's
not the backup 5.
So then, right, but then there's no rim protection. So why is like, what's Jaden McDaniels doing picking up a guy 94 feet when it's like, we have no, Baron J isn't ready yet. Like it was just, that then spiraled to me into so many bad coaching little wrinkles that I don't think would have happened had Rudy have been on the court.
Yeah. I remember. I mean, you texted me when Rudy was out. You're like, okay, well, maybe we'll get Jaden at the 5 now, and I was like, yeah, and that didn't happen.
He's on the perimeter the whole time.
Yeah, and he was. I wrote down he was out there for 2.5 minutes total without both Reed and Randall. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I think maybe you can call, if they're a man, like you can call Jaden the 5 if he's out there alongside Nas in some of those spots, if he's not on the ball in the perimeter. But when it's Reed and Randall out there together, I don't think Jaden is functioning at the 5 defensively unless they're in a zone and Jaden's in the middle of the zone. Mm-hmm. But typically what happens is, they just continue playing Jaden at the 3 and go small at the 4 or 5 with Reed Randall there. So I don't think we got our Jaden McDaniels. Let's see, final 16 minutes of tonight playing center. I don't think that didn't happen. And I don't think it will happen unless not only Rudy, but one of Reed and Randall are also out. I think those are more the minutes where Jaden functions as like a true rim protector and not like a spot cross match. Okay, he's at the rim sort of situation, like a pre-planned bit there. But I know we talked about a lot of different things with Rudy, but can they actually win without Rudy? No, I think they need. I don't think they can win at this 50-win clip. Last one. And this can just be kind of like a one-word answer, short answer. I just wrote, on a scale of 1 to 10, how much does this team need a trade to rebalance the roster at the deadline?
11. I mean, I really believe that. I really believe that you can, in one breath, say they built a contending team to get a bite at the apple the last couple of years, and to be able to go to back-to-back Western Conference Finals while making a seismic trade like the Cat trade is very impressive. But every year is different, and every year the league changes, the rosters change. And I'm looking at a roster right now. We did a whole 70-minute podcast talking mainly about Rob Dillignham, Mike Conley. We haven't even like Bones Hyland. Like they're just not getting much from their bench. And this is now the chicken or egg thing of like, is it the coaching staff's fault that they're not developing them? Blah, blah, blah. I just want to shout out our friend, Andy Quick, who does Punch Drunk Wolves. He wrote this over the weekend. This was when you talk about, well, the young guys just need more opportunities, right? Because this is to your point about the roster and trades. The young guys need more opportunities. I thought this was crazy. When Terrence Shannon Jr. is on the floor 191 minutes before last night's game, the Wolves are being outscored by 19 points per 100 possessions. For reference, last year, the worst team in the league, the Wizards, had a net rating of minus 12.2. When Rob's on the floor 213 minutes, didn't play last night, the net rating is minus 6.6. I have also been like, got to give the young guys more run. If you were driving from Seattle to Miami, Dane, and you had you and your spouse and 3 kids in the car, and all the other kids kept driving into the fucking ditch or hitting cars or getting speeding tickets, like at some point you're just going to take over. Like, I can't let the young kids drive anymore. And I don't know if that means all the young kids got to get traded for more vets. They still have this 21-year-old, 20-year-old, 19-year-old center who is in the chamber right now growing, but there is no way anyone in that organization can look at the roster right now and think we have 7 or 8 guys we trust in a playoff matchup. And the playoffs aren't for 4.5 more months, so you got some time, but it's an 11 because I think you've had enough. As Finch said last night, 24 games in, we had to make a change. I think you have to make a change to the roster. I don't know what that is. I don't like doing the trade stuff. I don't know what salary you pay with Rob, whatever, but they have to shake this up, in my opinion.
Yeah. So just the general like approach to the idea of trading, I think is how you would make the trade is interesting, right? I think, like you said, a lot of people could get on board with your thesis there earlier of like this bad situation for Rob. Maybe this is a best for both sides kind of move on sort of situation, right? I think that, not for sure, but that's a fair argument, fair stance to have. So just in that vacuum, it's like, okay, we're going to trade Rob Dillignham, makes $6 million. So you could trade Rob Dillignham for a player who makes $6 million. And through that need to be like navigating, making sure like that doesn't push some team into the first apron or second apron. Like it's, you know, a fairly limited, but you're getting a $6 million player back. Is there like a $6 million player out there that you 1-for-1 with Rob, even if you're attaching like some second round picks on the Wolves side to go get that player that makes this different, that answers the problems that you're talking about? I don't think so, because that guy comes in and you're still like, okay, this player, $6 million player X is he for sure like going to give you a lot more than Bones Hyland? Are you giving him this hypothetical player minutes over Jalen Clark now? Does it remove Dante DiVincenzo from the starting lineup? Like there's a cost to just like a 1-to-1 trade, especially if it's just for a $6 million player. So as I start thinking about the trade deadline, and if I start my thought process with that being like Rob Dillignham is going out in the trade, how I'm thinking about it is, what am I trading with Rob Dillignham? Mm-hmm. So it is a 2-for-1 trade, so that the player that when they're coming back is going to be a rotation piece, is going to give you something off the bench, is going to maybe even start at point guard. You kind of have to have 2 going out for that one to come in and feel clean, I feel like. And then that opens up the other thread of like, well, who is the other player that you're trading out? Is it Terrence Shannon Jr., who has equally bad numbers this season? Okay, now we're talking about $10 million. Is there a $10 million guy that you can get for Terrence Shannon Jr. and Rob Dillignham that achieves all these things that we're talking about? Maybe, you know. But if you want to start talking about adding more of a bankable impact player, you start thinking about a guy that makes maybe $20 million. Okay, is that a Dillingham and DiVincenzo trade? Dante makes about 12. So between the two, you're at like 18, 19 there. Or does our team need a real starting caliber guy that is making 30 plus million? Okay, now you're talking about a Dillingham plus Naz Reid trade. That gets you up to, what would that be, about 28? Or a Dillingham plus Julius Randle trade, as that gets you up to about 37. You know, like I do think you kind of need to tier it out by price of player that you're going to acquire, being as this trade is going to need to match up money. This theoretical trade is going to need to match up money for money. And every one of those, okay, so Naz is going out in that. Well, who's Naz then? Or like, oh, okay, we're moving on from Julius Randle. Well, say goodbye to like 25, 6 and 6, you know, like there's these opportunity costs to every pathway here forward. And this is what Tim Conley is paid the big bucks for and has a great track record of making moves. But I want to caution against the 11 out of 10 for making a trade, which I don't think you're doing, but like just in the vein of like, just need to make a trade to make a trade, because I think you can make a trade and find yourself having similar complications that you have right now about who plays and when they play, and is this a square peg in a round hole type of deal here too. But yeah, like you said, 2 months to think about it. I just think obviously a move to removing Rob Dillingham from the rotation after having kind of been given this opportunity for the first 24 games of the season, I think it makes it reasonable for us to be thinking about this for sure.
Yeah. And again, if you want to know how stupid I am, when Dane texted me last night, I'm like, well, what would you do? What contract would you pair with Rob? I said, I don't know. Just get me another one of those D'Lo for Nikhil and Mike trades. Right? Like, I don't know how we get there, but Tim Conley just figure it out. And to your point, there's so much context that matters. And I'm sorry again to keep referencing the 3 Bears, but like there is the small trade that gets you a Chris Dunn, who has deficiencies and missed a bunch of shots and kind of cost the Clippers that game. There's that medium level trade now. We throw Terrence in maybe, or a Dante, or there's the hot porridge of you pair Rob with Nas, you pair Rob with Julius. I just am completely opting out of that stuff. Like I'll just analyze it when it's done. I don't know how you get there, but I think now, and I know I'm not like mixing your words or twisting your words, but the opportunity cost to acquire that player is so valid. But now that we are more than a quarter through the season, the opportunity cost of not doing something is why you now have to rely on a partial guaranteed contract, Bones Hyland, to try to save your ass against a team that doesn't have Devin Booker. So
100%.
And you and I see it eye to eye. I'm just saying you are now at a kind of a pivot point. That's how the seasons break out. You kind of figure stuff out in the first 25%. The next 50-ish% is like, all right, do we start making some moves? It's December 9th today. I think it's December 15th that a lot of guys are trade eligible. And then January 15th is when more guys open up that sign deals this summer. So like there is still some time you have to wait to figure this out. You can't just do, because I've gotten a lot of that, make a trade today. Well, you can't, because the player pool opens up wider as you wait a little longer. That's why the deadline is February 5th, 2026. But for me, the opportunity cost right now of putting a bunch of guys that, I mean, Terrence Shannon Jr., we're big fans of him still, I think. I don't know if he's going to get traded. He is one of the worst rotation players in the NBA right now. Like, he is an anchor to them when he comes in, and that's a bummer. And I don't know what happened or if it's mental or no right hand or whatever, but they have to find more
it's because
talent.
There's nothing he can even do. There's nothing he can do within an 8-minute role. There's nothing Rob Dillignham can do within an 8-minute role. And I don't know if there's anything that they can do from a 15-minute a game role either, because it's been so bad in the 8-minute role. I can't say that it like for sure would be way better if you doubled their minutes. But I do think we need to remember the type of players that Terrence Shannon Jr. and Rob Dillingham were last time they were playing meaningful minutes, which was in college. Terrence Shannon Jr. played like James Harden, like heliocentric Illinois offense. Like that is so different than what he is being asked to do on this team right now as a situational 3 and D and maybe some transition type of stuff for 8 minutes a game. I understand that being extremely difficult for TJ to adjust to. Same for Rob. Last time he was getting meaningful minutes was in that Kentucky context, which could not be night and day different than the context that he's being asked to play in here right now too. So I don't think they both are trash. I don't at all.
I don't either. No.
Within this role, they have been trash, and so it as Finch said, it just leads to making it so something has to change. But I am not ruling out the possibility that for both of those guys, if they are in a role that is more comfortable, more familiar to them, how about that? A role that feels a little bit more familiar to them, then I think we would get a better version of him. It certainly wouldn't be those numbers that we're getting right there. And there's a tepidness to them of like, how much do I even want to like let myself spread my wings when I'm out there? You know what Bones Hyland did last night? He came in with the exact same role that Rob Dillingham has played in. And he said, I'm going to play like Bones Hyland plays. And that's what he did. He played like himself. He wasn't like some stilted version of himself of like, I'm just trying to do A, B, and C. I think that's an advantage of Bones having been in the league a little bit more and understanding of like, I need to play like myself here, or I'm going to play like 60% of myself, and 60% of myself is not good enough. Rob Dillingham and Terrence Shannon Jr., I think, are trying to circumscribe themselves into a 60% of themselves role, and they're not good at that. They're not good at that. It's very hard for anybody to be able to do, but especially a player with extremely, little opportunity here. So if and when Terrence Shannon Jr. and Rob Dillingham get opportunities, if that even happens anymore, I think you need to allow them the opportunity to play a version of themselves that more mirrors what they played like last time they were good, which was in college. Or even I think with Theige, we can point to Summer League and what that looked like. The ball in his hands more, a higher usage, and asking him to play on the move rather than statically in the corners or above the break. I don't think these guys are good at being role players right now. I don't know if they would be good in a bigger role, but I know they're not good at this. And we've seen a pretty substantial sample size with pretty egregiously bad results that, yeah, again, to Finch's point, just leads me to believe something needs to be done differently here. That's completely reasonable. And the guy they're going to is more of a vet who knows how to more so be himself. It makes sense to me.
So just to kind of close this out and then maybe close the pot out, but is your point, because I think you just nailed this, like sincerely, when or if those guys get an opportunity, play like you're not asking for more minutes, you're maybe asking for more freedom to be who they are, right? Because I'm this isn't a gotcha, but like Bones Hyland played 5 minutes in the fourth quarter last night, 8 points, 2 rebounds, and a steal. So like he's the same age as Terrence. And again, you made a lot of context of like Terrence did this in college and Bones has been in the league more, but like the idea that these guys need more physical minutes to be productive, I'm struggling to agree with anymore, because I watched Bones last night impact the basketball game in 5 minutes in the fourth quarter. And guess what? He did all the shit you want him to do, and Finch still pulled him. Right?
Mm-hmm.
So
and I don't know, Kyle. I don't know, but that was his 10th, 11th, 12th, 13th, and 14th minutes.
Yeah,
when was the last time
second
Terrence
stint,
Shannon Jr. even got the opportunity to play, that second stint and get up to, 14, 15 minutes in a game? Again, I don't know. I think that is the optimistic theory on those guys, that if you gave them more time, you would get a better version of them. But I don't know that. So without that being a known, I think the best thing those guys can do is try to play more like themselves within a little 8-minute a night role. I just think that's going to be hard to do. It just clearly is hard for them to do and be themselves within that role. So I will understand if the recourse then from the coaching staff is to not play either of them at all until there's an opportunity put in place for them to be able to play 14, 15 minutes a night when somebody gets hurt. And there's and it just in a role that allows them to be more like themselves. I've just seen too much good flashes from particularly TJ to rule out the idea that just the idea that I had of him 2 months ago. So that's right.
And that is like, I think Terrence Shannon Jr. to me is like the biggest WTF, because I've watched all of his NBA activity, like in person. Like the summer league stuff is great, and he has skills that are like NBA level. That's why you drafted a 24-year-old rookie. But then you look at the numbers, and it's like, if he's the worst rotation player in net rating and they're getting outscored by 16 points in 100 possessions when he's out there, you can at least acknowledge why the coaching staff would be like, well, let's double his minutes, right? Like, is the doubling of the minutes going to be like, okay, it's actually going to get to like, we're only getting outscored by 8 points? Or is it going to be like, we're getting outscored by 32 points per 100 possessions when Terrence is out there? Like, so that's why I was probably leading this charge more than anyone, and I am so wrong. But this idea that just the young guys need more time, I don't know if that's accurate. I think, to your point, when they are given time, they just need to not have this giant gray cloud over their head of making mistakes or whatever. Because last night, again, I thought Bones Hyland played really well. He made mistakes and didn't really matter. He got pulled and it was the wrong decision. So it'll be fascinating. This is an audio record as we break this all stuff down. And I just wanted to add this. No segment. It's awesome and cute when Joe Ingles is the slob wizard and inbounds the basketball so they can get to the free throw line, because they don't, again, Chris Finch trusts Mike inherently and he trusts Joe Ingles. It's a lot different when Joe Ingles is inbounding the basketball with 6.8 seconds left. I thought that was a weird mistake last night of like, you got to put 5 guys on the court down 3 that are going to be ready to take a shot. And Joe Ingles hasn't played. And for him to be inbounding the basketball again, that's a totally different circumstance than trying to get to the free throw line. I think those types of little things down the stretch is an organizational thing that needs to be looked at. So thanks for letting me say that.
Yeah, well, I mean, and I would say even before that, like, what were they trying to get to there? You know, like they didn't even get it in bounds to get to something. I mean,
if he's throwing it in to get a guy fouled, I respect it because I trust him.
No,
But
you know what I'm saying though? Like,
I'm with you.
what was the play? What was the play? The play was not.
Well,
I mean,
and then this spirals again into like we just did the Mike and Norrie's drawing the late game plays, and we love Micah now more than Finch. And then that play last night couldn't get the ball to Ant or Dante, and now it's fed to Drew. Like that was a terrible. I mean, maybe the Phoenix Suns really defended it well, and Jordan Knott's a good coach, but they had no good play with 6.8 seconds left down 3 at home.
Well, and the players also didn't run a play. Like they didn't. That wasn't
organizational.
A play. Like,
yeah.
The Wolves are bad at that. The Wolves are bad at executing when the game's on the line there. That's an unambiguously true statement, and that's a good example of that. Yeah, it's weird to bring in the 38-year-old who's cold to be in there because, you know, what often happens in those situations, inbound the ball back to the inbounder for a 3 is an extremely common thing.
Almost got it
happen in those spots. Yeah. So that's weird. It's weird that you need to do that in the first place, right? Like you don't trust anybody else. I agree. I don't trust anybody else to throw that inbound in there either, like effectively. But yeah, that's just a terrible look. You know, I mean,
that's what makes this season fun. I think that's what makes this season fun is that there is, for every reaction, there's what is the saying? Like an equal reaction, or for every action, there's an equal reaction. There's a lot of things right now that I think are kind of broken or need to be fixed, but there's also some negative reactions to some of that. You know, dumping your young guys just to go get Chris Dunn to shoot 28% from the corners is probably a negative reaction, and I fucked that up. But I also think too, like you're just, I don't know, man. There was something about Chris Finch post game a couple nights ago saying we're committed to this, and then 1 or 2 games later being like, all right, we're done with that. And I think this team is now, as we move forward, they have a couple days off, then they go to Golden State and play another team that's missing some guys. It's a very interesting season, and I don't think it's a code red on the airport terror scale. I think it's maybe like a yellow, but I think every game now matters. I think every transaction matters because to put a bow on it, I think Ant can drag them to 50 wins. I really do. I don't know if they can win a playoff series with the group that they have right now playing at the level that they're playing.
And I personally don't even think that, as good as Ant has been, I don't think it's a guarantee that he can even drag them to that level. I mean, it's on pace for 51. Like, and I can point to that, but I am not sitting here confidently of like, yeah, well, they're going to still figure out their way to even 48, 49. Like, I don't know. There's, as we've talked about, there's just these incongruencies of this team that don't make me confident that they're going to be able to do it. Again, as we say all the time, this is nothing new for this team in mid-December to have incongruencies. And historically, Finch and the players, because it is a global thing, have worked to iron that out. They're at the point of the season where it's a sliding doors moment, I think, of like, are we going to do it again? Are we going to do that again? Are we going to put some of our pride and ego and moodiness and fatigue aside for the greater goal, which again they have done historically, but I don't think it's a guarantee that they're going to be doing that, even if Anthony Edwards is, you know, once every 3 nights going to have these supernova 40-point games. I'm not sure that in and of itself, given how rocky everything else is enough to make this a 50-win team and thus a team that's hosting a first-round playoff series. I think they need to find that still. And the good news is they have like 55 games and months to be able to do that. But I think it would be wrong to say they're not searching for it anymore. Anything else? Ready to call it?
Fascinating game coming up on Friday, December 12th. Iowa Wolves, Motor City Cruise. Johan Berenger and Rocco Zikarsky. Let's see if they got anything down there. So the Iowa Wolves are actually, I mean, we never are going to talk about this because there's just too much going on. The Iowa Wolves are really fun. They have some like really good guards, it's kind of a fun palate cleanser, just a different way to look at it. If you're not a college basketball fan, it's hard to find Iowa Wolves games. But yeah, I just think it's a different way to look at it. And now if Berenger, as you just said, is going down there, is he going to play? I don't know, but if you're someone who's like, I want to see what the kid can do outside of Las Vegas, maybe you'll get an opportunity these next couple G League games. And that's not going to solve all of the issues that you just like expertly pointed out, but it might be one lever that this team needs more levers to pull. So give me fun.
Yeah, no, let's try and watch one or some of that game. Yeah, no, let's talk about it next week. Right? Okay. If we could see it, I think that'll be fun. What Bear and Jay look like, and if we're watching the game too, like little Rocco and Tristan Newton's getting buckets down there, Zion pulling. Yeah, that's
is Zion pulling the guard, right? He's really fun. Yeah, okay, I'm excited. Iowa Wolves on the calendar Friday. Let's get it.
Yeah, right before you double header, you watch Iowa Wolves Motor City Cruise right into Wolves Warriors at 9:00. All right, man, this is fun. You guys know you can follow Kyle on Twitter at Kyle Theige. We're trying to do multiple Kyle episodes a week. We got kind of a extended break for the Wolves right now. So I don't know, Kyle, we talked about maybe we'll get back together on Friday, but there won't be another game until then. So we might just hold off until next week. But what is going to for sure happen is Britt and I are going to record on Wednesday afternoon. He's writing today or tomorrow morning or something like that. And then we'll talk a bit about, what Britt's take is on this team, 24 games into the season. And we'll circle it there. And then, sometime next week, if not earlier, we'll have Kyle back. But until then, he's Kyle. I'm Dane. Peace out.
How I'm feeling, man, I hope it never stop, yeah. Green and hot so you can find me in the crowd, yeah. Don't let standards ever bring you down, yeah. Hope you dancing like